And welcome back to my channel. This is Sandeep. I hope you guys are doing great. So in today's video we are going to discuss error handling in Python. Errors are an inevitable part of programming, and handling them effectively is crucial for writing robust and reliable code. In this chapter we will explore how to handle errors in Python using try except blocks and other mechanisms. Understanding errors. Errors in Python can be broadly categorized into syntax errors and exceptions. Syntax errors occur when the code is not written according to the language syntax, and they are detected during the parsing phase. Exceptions, on the other hand, occur during the execution of a program and can be handled programmatically. Alright, now let's look at syntax error and exception. Now if I try to run this piece of code, this should be giving me syntax error, right? Because the complete syntax should be closing the bracket, and then if you run it should be printing out this text here, hello world. Now we are going to look at exception. Result. Now if I try to run this piece of code, this should be giving me zero division error, because 5 cannot be divided by 0. Okay, now we are going to look at how we can handle this sort of error with try and except block. Okay, let me remove this piece of code. Try result. Divided by 0, except 0 division error, print error cannot divide by 0. Okay, now let's run this. Cannot divide by 0. Now if I add a 2 here and try to run, so this is how we handle exception in Python. Okay, now we are going to look at how to handle multiple exceptions. So let me write this piece of code. Try value equal to int. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to convert this into integer, and this is a string, not a number. So this should be throwing an error. Now we are going to print it out on the screen. Error invalid operation. Operation. Now we will write another code. So print and unexpected error occurred. Now we are going to run it. First we are going to see this block of code, this exception, the first exception. Okay, so this should be throwing a value error. Okay, because ABC is a string, cannot be converted into integer, right? Now If I type none, what is wrong? Right, now this should be triggering the second except, right? Okay, an unexpected error occurred. Integer argument must be a string, a bytes like object or number, not none type, right? So this is how we can handle multiple exceptions, right? Now we are going to look at how to use else and finally. Okay. Now I'm going to remove this. I'm going to write try result 10 divided by 2 except 0 division error, print error cannot divide it, cannot divide by 0, right? Now to use else. Okay, so if the error does not occur, it is going to show the result. If result finally this block always runs. Okay, so I'll just walk you through this code. So what happens here? Okay, let me just okay. So if I try to divide 10 by 0, it should be throwing 0 division error. Let me just run it. Okay, error cannot be. Okay, so we are getting this message, right? And finally, this piece of code will always be executed irrespective of whether we are getting an error or we are getting a value of the result, right? So now if I add 2 here, if I try to run, okay, so we can see the result here, and these blocks always run. So if you are building a program or you are designing an app where you need to show a prompt, right? Whether this is getting successful or unsuccessful, that will always be displayed. In that scenario, you can use this finally to show the show the message on the screen. Okay. Alright, and now we are going to look at raising an exception. To raise an exception means to signal that an error has occurred. This can be done using the raise keyword followed by the exception you want to raise. Now, why raise an exception? Raising an exception can be useful for enforcing certain conditions in your code. For example, you might want to ensure that a function argument meets specific criteria, like an age cannot be negative. Raising an exception. Let's look at the code and explanation. Now we are going to write a function validate age. Okay. Now if age less than 0, it's going to execute this exception. Okay. Value error. Age cannot be negative. try an exception block. Result is going to hold the value validate age. I'm going to provide 5. Now I'm going to run except value error as e, and then I'm going to print it out. Print e. Okay. Okay, let's run this code. Age cannot be negative. Okay, so the exception which we raised here, it is executed in try except block. Now if I remove this and add 10, okay, run this. Okay, now we are going to get valid age. Okay, so this is how we can raise exception in Python. Okay, all right, now we are going to look at how to work with custom exception in Python. So in order to demonstrate that, I'm going to use an example of bank account where the user, when the user is trying to withdraw an amount which is more than the balance amount, it is going to trigger an exception stating that the withdrawal amount is more than sufficient balance, right? Now let's do it. Let's write the code. I'm going to create a subclass of exception and I'm going to name it as insufficient balance error. Okay. Exception. Now I'm going to define init self and give 2 parameter balance and amount. Okay. Now self dot balance equal to balance and self amount. Now super withdraw only balance. Sufficient. Right, now I'm going to explain this code. Okay, so this is a subclass of exception, right? Now this piece of code or this line of code is defined to initialize the exception with the current balance and the attempted withdrawal balance. Okay, and this super call, you know, it is going to initialize the base exception class with a custom error message. Okay, now I'm going to create a bank account class. Bank account. Okay, now define initialize self to balance deposit self amount is less than or equal to 0. It is going to raise an exception, okay, and this is going to be called value error. Deposit amount must be positive. Now finally, self.balance is going to be increased by the amount, okay. Now withdraw amount if amount more than self dot balance raise in okay. Now it is going to define self dot balance then amount, and finally we're going to create another function, get balance self return self dot balance, okay. Now here we created a class called bank account, right? Now then we initializes the balance and we provided the balance amount 0, right? Now we are going to define another method to add money into the account, and if the money is 0 or negative balance, negative amount, then it is going to throw a value error. And when we provide a positive amount, that is going to be added to the balance, right? And also for self withdrawal, if the amount is more than the balance amount, then it is going to throw this insufficient error. And also we are going to self dot balance minus equal to amount, okay, and finally this is going to show the balance, okay. Now we are going to use the try and exception, try account bank account 100, then account dot deposit 50, okay. Now print balance after deposit account dot get balance, okay. Now we are going to account dot withdrawal, okay. I'm going to first and withdraw, let's say 20, okay, and then I'm going to define this exception except in balance error as IE print value error as VE print. Now error VE. Okay. Now I'm going to explain that. So okay, now let's run this. Okay. Now this. Okay, let's run this. All right. Insufficient balance as okay, got it. As so balance after deposit 150. Okay, let's after withdrawal okay, let's run it again. Balance after deposit, this piece of code was executed and then it showed balance after deposit. Now again it came to this and it showed balance after withdrawal 130. Okay, now if I try to trying to add minus 50, let's rerun. Deposit amount must be positive, so this piece of code threw an error. Okay, and it showed and that triggered this value error. Okay, now I'm going to 50 and then I'm going to add 200 to it. Now this should be triggering the insufficient balance error. Let's run it. Okay, balance after deposit 150. Now we are getting this error. Attempted to withdraw 200 but only 150 is available. Okay, so alright, so this is how we use custom exception in Python. Effective error handling is essential for building robust and reliable Python programs. Understanding how to use try except blocks, handle multiple exceptions, and work with else and finally blocks empowers you to write code that gracefully handles unexpected situations. Alright guys, see you in the next video. Till then, take care and stay happy. Bye bye.